Welcome to the Marketing Influence Podcast. I'm your host, Paula Kioki. Today's guest is Jimmy Gibson. He is Vice President of Brand Communication at Thrive Agency. Jimmy is a professional speaker, author, and expert on brand visibility in the age of AI we're all living in. Jimmy has built a reputation for helping businesses stand out in an increasingly crowded digital world by combining storytelling, communication, strategy, and emerging AI-driven marketing insights. From his unique background as a professional magician to leading brand communication for one of the largest digital agencies, Jimmy brings a fresh perspective on what it truly takes to become unforgettable in today's marketplace. Welcome, Jimmy. That's
Glad
a
to be here,
mouthful.
Paula.
That's a
Yes, it
mouthful,
is.
right?
Excited to dig into all of that, interesting stuff, so thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm glad you're here. So, Jimmy, what lessons from performing on stage still influence how you approach marketing and communication today?
Yeah, I guess it's the filter in which I see marketing through because each trick has, like, 3 phases to it. There's the attention phase, the curiosity phase, and then the climax of the trick or the conversion phase, and I think we're gonna get into some mechanics of that. And then there's a term in magic called misdirection, and I think a lot of people think it means, "Hey, look over here while I do this secret thing over there." Um, and actually, it's sort of the opposite. It's attention control and helping your audience understand what is important to look at and what's not important to look at. And, I think when you have a website or you have some sort of piece of content, something has to be the star. You have to
Mhm.
guide the eye, you have to guide the brain. And so those are things that I'm always thinking about.
And especially with the attention span now. I mean, I think,
Oh, yeah.
what was it? I don't know how many years ago it was 2 minutes. Now what is it? 2 seconds.
2 seconds. Yes.
So we both know. Okay. So you've also talked about visibility, not necessarily talent. And it often what separates the successful brands from overlooked ones. What first made you realize that business owners were struggling with invisibility?
Yeah, I guess it was sort of all coming together about 18 months ago when the whole advent of AI came on board. And I know we'll get into some traditional SEO things maybe later, but with, um, we had about 1,000 active clients and they were seeing organic traffic drop a little bit. And then I was reading these studies about the effectiveness of the visibility of the owner, the founder, the CEO, some subject matter expert within the company.
Mhm.
And I decided I would research it. And I was like, okay, what exactly is going on here? And it really is a different place than we've been in for my career.
Mhm.
Like it used to be that personal branding was sort of this fluffy thing that people thought was self centered. And,
Mhm.
I really don't want to spend a lot of time on that. And now it's becoming a differentiator. And the way these AI models are looking for and finding or not finding companies and people is sort of a shift that I've never seen before. And I think it's important for businesses and business owners to know exactly what's going on
Mhm.
backstage or behind the curtain, if we want to keep that metaphor going, so that they can leverage it to their advantage. Because I don't want this to be a doomsday episode. I want this to be an encouragement to go, look, not a lot of people are doing what needs to be done. So if you just do a little bit, like you're going to be way ahead of some other people. And I think there's this window of opportunity over the next few years. And so the time is perfect for folks to jump on board and start doing some of these things that they probably haven't thought about in the same way.
Are you seeing, because I know folks that I've talked to over the last year or so, that the CEOs are always kind of had like a pushback that they didn't want to be one out there or be in the face or, promoting the brand or what have you. Are you seeing that kind of shift gradually or increasingly?
I think the natural tendency is for that owner, founder, CEO to sort of take that back seat and let
Mhm.
the logo do the work. The interesting thing is AI loves people ahead of logos
Okay.
because it understands their experience, their expertise, their
Mhm.
point of view. Company is made up of people.
Mhm. Interesting you
I
say that because I haven't heard anybody say that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And that's really why LinkedIn has become almost the number 2 place that these AI platforms look at to understand who people are and how to categorize them,
Mhm.
because, it knows all of those things that I just mentioned. I spoke with a group of business owners a few weeks ago, and I talked about a lot of these topics, and, one owner stood up and said, "Look, I've just canceled all of my social media platforms. I would prefer to sort of stay in the background." And I
Oh.
said, "Okay, well, that's a choice."
Mhm.
I have some pretty compelling data, not just anecdotal, but revenue-based data
Mhm.
that would argue for just doing a little bit,
Mhm.
because everybody wants to know who's behind the
Yes,
company, right? I
agree.
mean, like, if you go to a restaurant and the owner comes out and talks
Right.
to another table, you're like, "Oh my gosh, who are those people?" The owner came out and talked to them.
Mhm.
Or I have my guy or I have my gal who can help you. And so it's a natural thing, just from a behavior standpoint,
Mhm.
but it carries over into this AI visibility mode. And I would say more people are suspecting that this is the case, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about it.
Okay.
And that's why I'm sort of waving the flag going, "No,
Mhm.
you've got to tell who you are, what you're passionate about," and would love to give some people some takeaways before the end of the show so that they can know exactly what that means in the real world.
And people like passion. If they see you're passionate about your product or service, it's a little bit infectious. And you mentioned LinkedIn was number 2. Who's number 1 for the AI, or what is number 1 for the AI engine?
Yeah, I would say, they're all sort of shifting and moving around, but Reddit has
Okay.
been in the top spot
Mhm.
for quite some time because it is raw user generated content that has some pretty strict requirements about how to post on that platform. Um, I'm not saying everybody should run out and engage on Reddit. It may be appropriate for your business, maybe not. LinkedIn, obviously, we've just mentioned. YouTube
Okay.
is also very important. What people don't understand, especially, well, number one, if people think, "Oh my gosh, is Jimmy going to tell me to start a YouTube channel?" Yeah, actually, but it's not that hard.
Okay.
And I mean, go to YouTube and type in, "How do I start a YouTube channel?"
Mhm.
You can literally start one on your phone with the app.
Wow.
You
Okay.
never have to go to the computer, and it's actually reading the transcripts of the videos that are put up. So it will transcribe what's being said, and it's a great place to talk about what you know and what you love and your expertise. One of the most searched for terms on YouTube is how to, and then fill in the blank.
Mhm.
And so if you have something to teach, that's a great place.
Mhm.
Um,
I've used
and
it. I've used it.
yeah, yeah, it's a little daunting to think about
Mhm.
having your own YouTube channel,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, all of your podcasts are on YouTube and
Mhm.
AI loves
I mean,
that.
I've used it to solve problems, like having
Oh,
fix
great.
something.
I
Yeah,
see what you're
yeah.
saying. You've used it.
Yes,
Yeah,
for
I have
YouTube.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife will come to me and go, "That drain is leaking. What do we do?"
Yeah,
I'm
what do
like,
we do?
"Oh, give me 5 minutes. I'll be right back."
Right back.
And
Yeah,
yeah, it's great
yeah.
because it's visual. Last year,
Mhm.
video was the highest consumed content on the internet
Yeah.
because we're kind of lazy,
Mhm,
right? We don't want to
mhm,
read. We want to be entertained. We want
mhm,
somebody to tell us.
mhm.
So for all those reasons, that's why a brand should be posting video.
And if you're visual, like 70% of the world, or at least US, is visual, so you wanna
Yeah.
see it, so Thrive Agency has grown into a large full-service digital marketing organization with hundreds of employees, and you mentioned 1,000 clients. What do you think has allowed Thrive to scale while so many agencies plateau?
Yeah. Well, I think we've been around for 20 plus years. We've seen just about every change in the algorithm. Um,
Mm,
what we have focused on is not being focused on one particular industry or one particular vertical or one particular size of company,
okay.
because we learn from one client and are able to go, "Oh, okay. Well, if this could work in plumbing, I'll bet
Mhm,
some similar strategies could work in legal or medical. Or this definitely isn't going to work for this particular vertical, but we know it will work for that vertical."
mhm,
Um, so there were two components that really drove the growth. Number one was deciding to grow.
Mhm.
So there was a very specific goal around 2016
Okay.
for growth. And once you sort of plant that flag, then you go, okay, well, what is it going to take to grow? And then the second one was obviously reliance on ROI and outcomes as opposed to fluffy metrics
Mhm.
or activity. And so you're not going to keep a client or you're not going to grow your client base if you can't prove that you know how to do the work.
Mhm.
And then I would say the next thing that really helped was we focused on the basics.
Mhm.
A lot of agency chase the latest trend. We have relied heavily on SEO, which
Right.
has shifted a little bit. We can get into that. There are appropriate times where paid comes in, and then content has always been king or queen or however you want to say it.
One of the
And
2.
yeah, those are the basics of digital marketing. And
Mhm.
we also don't do any print media. We don't do any traditional, billboard or outdoor. We don't do direct mail. So everything is focused in our world of digital because it's measurable,
Mhm.
and we can, talk about if you put X in, you should get Y out of it. So yeah, I would say those are some of the main reasons.
It seems like to me that, in working with the larger holding companies and then down to medium to small agencies, that the holding companies is just about the spend, and I just feel like, what's the ROI? Whereas agencies like your size and smaller ones, they kinda dig in more at that level. Are we creating the value and the ROI better than did we do the spend?
Right, right.
Yeah. So you're heavily focused on AI visibility and how AI systems are reshaping discovery online. For business leaders who still think in terms of traditional SEO, what fundamental mindset shift needs to happen right now, do you think?
Okay. Paula, that's about a 3-hour
Uh-oh.
conversation.
Can
So
you
let me give you at about a 2-minute answer and
Yeah,
then we can pick it apart.
okay.
Okay. So traditional SEO is all about ranking. So we're all familiar with you put something in Google and you get back page one, which is we call the 10 blue links. And then, there might be some ads or something in there. And then you decide which link you want to go to, right? And that link will typically go to a page on the website.
Mhm,
And so it was really about optimizing for keywords. What page do I want to rank? Is it a product page, a service page? Is it a location page? Like, what is it? And there's about 230 different things related to the Google algorithm that decides who gets the top 10 spot and who gets the number one spot and, all of that. Okay. Well, about 60% of searches, the shift happened last year, end in 0 click. And so that means nobody's going to the website. And I'll use air quotes
mhm,
for nobody. Certainly, people are still getting traffic, but it's a little bit different. And so, if 60% of those searches are not happening they don't end in a click, what's going on?
mhm,
Well, there's all sorts of things right now on the search engine results page or SERP. If you're into it, you've recognized that acronym, where you have AI overviews. You might have AI mode that's being presented. You might have a featured snippet, as they're called. There may be a knowledge panel if depending on what type of search you're doing. And so the user has sort of got enough information to understand what they were looking for. Um, what has happened is these AI models now are answering questions
mm,
instead of being optimized for keywords. And so if you have traditionally optimized your website for ranking against keywords, you should be thinking about how to answer a question. And I can give some tips on that. But um, a traditional Google search from a keyword mindset is about 5 to 6 words. When you start to engage with um, Google's AI mode, some of these large language models like Perplexity, ChatGPT,
mhm.
Claude, Gemini, it's about 32 words
Oh,
that people are starting a conversation, and the whole goal is to answer a question. And so it may be a broad question like, I have a problem with my air conditioner. It's making this sort of sound. What should we do?
Mhm.
And so, as that conversation goes down, it may end up in a result to a local provider who can come help fix that air conditioning unit. All of these are based on question and answers.
Mhm.
And so, these AI models are not just going down the path of this ranking by keywords, it's actually connecting dots all over the internet.
Okay.
And there's two layers. One layer is the knowledge base. Um, and that happens about every 3 to 6 months. These large language models like spend a whole bunch of money and they do their research and they're adding to their knowledge base. And then the second layer is active search or live search as to what's changed since that training model has happened.
Okay.
And so it's just a completely different animal. It's like SEO, but with some sprinkles on top.
Mhm.
Um, so that was a 10,000-foot
Yeah.
view, but I'm happy to dig in to any of the specifics, or we can get as high level, or we can go technical,
I do have a
wherever you want
follow
to go.
I do have a follow-on question. So if 60% aren't going to the website and they're getting most of the information from AI, is AI is also making the recommendation of where they could go, right? Or no?
Yeah. So there's two behaviors going on. Number one, they've got the answer that they need. And
Okay.
so they may call you directly if there is some information on that page. And so one thing that's happening is attribution is getting all messed up with any type of, dashboards or data because it's hard to tell if they're not clicking what's going on. The other thing is you may go to one of these large language models and continue to do research.
Okay.
And then, depending on that large language model, it may or may not have a link to the website.
Okay.
So I would say Perplexity has links, ChatGPT sometimes does, sometimes doesn't. And so then the behavior is I've gotten to the point in my research, it's presented uh, a company that is selling a product or service that I need. I go back to Google
Mhm.
and I narrow that down and I might do a search locally. And what is interesting, even though your traffic to your website might be going down, your conversions and your revenue may be going up because a referral from AI actually converts at 4.5 times the rate of a traditional organic search.
Wow.
And so two things are going on. You can have less traffic. So I would say um, 200 referrals from organic search is the same value as 50 referrals from AI. So
Mhm.
you have to have less traffic. But if you're invisible to AI, you're never going to be part of the decision set.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
so you have to do both.
Yeah.
But sort of digging your heels in and going, I'm not going to worry about I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, you could significantly lose any sort of visibility you have, whether it be organic or AI related.
I'm not feeling like businesses don't wanna deal with AI. I think they don't know how to deal with AI,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I think, certainly companies like yours can assist in that, and I think the smaller the business, the more that's probably true. That they don't know how to deal with it or they're trying to learn how to deal with it.
Yeah. And I would say the advantage is if you do a little bit of research and you have some things that you can do yourself. And then, like you said, if you had a partner that can hold your hand and work
Yeah.
through it with you, um, size of the organization is not directly related to visibility in an
True.
AI world. And you can get results faster than traditional SEO. I mean, we typically were saying, it's going to be 6 to 8 months
Mhm.
before you can see some return on that investment. We've seen visibility kick in 30 to 60 days with some of these techniques related to AI. And again, it's always shifting and changing. It's not like you can, one and done,
Yeah.
set it and forget it, whatever cliche
Yeah.
phrase you want to use, right?
Right.
You kind of have to keep up and know what's going on. But yeah, I would say it is overwhelming, but you don't have to do everything. You can do 4 or 5 things on a consistent basis and you can see some good results.
It's a big difference though, 30, 60 versus 8, 9 months.
Oh, yeah.
You had to get the return. And so you created the Business Visibility Index, analyzing how businesses appear in AI-driven environments. What were some of the biggest surprises or misconceptions you uncovered through that research?
Yeah. And it has a little bit of backstory to it
Okay.
because you had mentioned something earlier about are most CEOs or founders or owners resistant to being visible? Well, again, about 18 months ago, we sort of saw the writing on the wall. We've been around for 20 years, but we've relied on a lot of inbound and we've never proactively had PR or done things to sort of put ourselves out there. And so the owner came to me and said, we need to do this, but I'm not going to be that person. I want you to be that person. And at first I was like, all right. And then I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so again, it doesn't have to be the founder, the owner, the CEO. It can be a subject matter expert within
Right.
the organization.
Okay.
And, you alluded to the fact that I was a professional magician. And so performance was sort of in my blood. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I tried a ton of stuff last
Yeah.
year, like
Okay.
a lot of stuff. But then I wanted to track what was working, what was not working.
Mhm.
And so about Q3 of last year, I just started to look and understand how was AI categorizing me. And
Mm.
then I started reading these research studies. Search Engine Journal did a study with LinkedIn, and they said that if a executive with an organization posts 10 times a year, not a month, not a week on LinkedIn, their referral base would increase 30% and their deal size would be 3.7 times the normal deal size. And I was
That's
like,
not very much
okay,
movement.
that's pretty significant. Um, and then about that time, we were shifting to LinkedIn being that number 2 slot, right? And so I said, well, I got to know what's going on. I don't want this to just be like, anecdotal evidence. I want to know.
Right.
And so I selected 400 businesses, none of which were our clients. So I
Okay.
didn't want to taint the results, right? And there were 5 different industries that I looked at. And so I looked at legal, medical, restoration, home services, and franchise. And then I looked most of our businesses that we work with are in the US. So this was all US based. And then I took the 4 major areas and then I had 2 different size companies, companies with revenue around 7.5 million and companies with revenue around 24 million.
Okay.
Um, and I wanted to see like what was going on. Well, the biggest surprise that I got was that 46% of business owners were completely invisible to AI.
Wow. That's
And so that shocked me.
yeah.
And then the other thing that shocked me was if I looked at those 2 different size companies, and so I'm going to throw some numbers out here and I'll try not to get too in the weeds with it. But let's look at that $7.5 million company. I looked at their traffic to their website year over year from January 2025 to January 2026 because there was a lot of volatility with traffic during that time period. And then I looked at projected revenue over the next 3 years. And so the companies where both the owner and the company were visible to AI grew over the next 3 years their revenue by $5.6 million.
Wow.
The ones that where both were invisible lost that $5.6 million.
That's huge.
And the owner portion of that 5.6 million was exactly half, 2.8 million. So the owner is the multiplier.
Mm. This is
And if you look at that $24 million business, it's even crazier,
mhm.
right? So the gap is 18 million and the owner contributes 8.9 million of that
Wow.
$18 million. And so all of a sudden, the owner becomes the multiplier for
Mhm.
visibility to the organization. Why? Because AI loves to categorize people.
Mm.
It knows who people are. It's looking for the acronym EAT, EEAT, experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. It's kind of hard to assign those to a business. It's easier to assign those to a person.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so that shocked me. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go out and tell everybody about this.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I mean, if people want to pick up that report, it's free. You can go to businessvisibilityindex.com. It'll cost you your email, but then
Nice.
there's a 5 email sequence where for free, I'm going to teach you what you can do
I'm gonna go get it.
to to get visible,
I'm gonna
right?
go get it.
Yep.
That's amazing. I would think when you present that, to a potential client and a CEO, they can if to have that kinda information, I would think they would jump in and get involved then. I mean, that's huge.
Oh, it is huge. And so that's one of the people at that event that I was speaking at stood
Mhm.
up after I had just relayed all this information, and
Mhm.
they said, I've canceled my social media accounts. I'm not really interested in posting online. What do you think I should do about it? And I said, well, it's a business decision at this point. I've
Mhm.
just showed you. I don't know what your revenue is. I have a link to a calculator within that report if you want to calculate your own revenue.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's up to you.
Mhm.
But I will tell you, so Gartner has done a study. They are projecting that this year organic search traffic will drop 25%,
Okay.
and by 2028 it'll drop 50%. And so that's that 3-year window that I was talking
Mhm.
about, and that's why I studied over the next 3 years. And so as organic traffic starts to decline and AI becomes a more mainstream way in which people look for things and
Mhm.
have questions that they want answered, if you are not visible, you are going to be sort of left out to
Mhm.
the tumbleweeds blowing through the street that you're on because it's categorizing companies and the ones that are visible. It's sort of this snowball effect. They get more visible, and the ones that are invisible actually get pushed down
Mhm.
because AI's like, well, they're not relevant. Um, I'm going to go with the folks who are the most visible and the most trustworthy because in
Mhm.
the end, that's what
Yep.
AI and Google wants to do is they want to get you as close as possible to the answer to the business or to the answer that you're looking for.
What you're looking for. Wow. That's a lot to think about.
You know,
Yeah, so I definitely recommend going and checking out your business visibility index because I will be doing that. So we're entering a world of zero-click search, AI summaries, and recommendation engines. How should brands rethink authority building when traffic itself is no longer the primary metric? And I think we've been kind of touching on that. Uh, Getting back to the CEO, I guess, what we just talked about. Do you have anything else to add on to that?
yeah, I would say the difference is third party validation, which was always a big deal in SEO because, if you got an article published somewhere and it had a backlink, that was important. But now it's more about the quality instead
Okay.
of the quantity. And so when I say AI is trying to connect all these dots, AI knows that you could write an article on your website and say, we're the greatest.
Mhm.
But for somebody else to say you're the greatest, and so I would say third party validation of being interviewed on a podcast,
Okay.
having an article in maybe an association that you belong to. Reviews have become very, very important for your business because there's also a sentiment, whether it's positive or negative, because AI is reading the content of those reviews. And so you want a nice footprint of different types of things being said about you,
Mhm.
but not 100 different things. Like, what do you want to be known for? And
Mhm.
so I'm actually giving you permission as a business and a business owner to not post about 100 different things. have 100 things out there about 3 to 5 things that you want to be known for, because that makes it a lot easier for AI to categorize who
Mm,
you are, what you're expert at. Um, and the more repetition of that similar type of content across many different places on the internet actually builds your authority and builds your visibility. It sounds a little boring, but it's not really worried about going viral. It doesn't care how many followers you have on LinkedIn or how many people subscribe to your YouTube channel, which I think is a breath of fresh air, right? It gives people a relief to like, okay, great. And it also takes the pressure off where you might be posing if you're worried about going viral, but if you're not worried about going viral, it becomes more about the content and your
mhm.
expertise and your
Yep,
authority, and you should lean in on that
and more authentic,
and more authentic. Absolutely.
and I think that's seems to be a big buzzword now is the authenticity of
You know,
people's content and what they're claiming, etcetera. So, a lot to think about, boy, you seem like you got your arms around it. Many marketers are overwhelmed by AI tools right now, you know that, we just talked about that. So,
sure.
what do you believe agencies are getting wrong about AI adoption?
Yeah, I would say I hear a lot about automating content, um, volume of production, efficiency, and it really comes down to what we just talked about,
Yeah.
right? Voice, authenticity, expertise.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, there are a lot of tools out there. We can get hung up on which tool is the best. I think there are some tools that do things better than other tools. I'm a big fan of the agentic workflow and having AI help you save time.
Mhm.
Um, I think one thing that we're sort of knocking on the door, and we've seen it in the media, is some of these beginning entry level positions are being replaced by AI. And I think we're going to have a huge talent shortage in the coming years because if we've turned all of that over to AI, then how are the folks going to know what's the right way to do something if we trust that AI is doing it the right way? I mean, when I came up through the system, I had a creative director standing over my shoulder telling me the right way to do it, the wrong way to do it. From an SEO perspective, how do you do keyword research?
Mhm.
What is important as far as contextual way that you create content? Um, AI still hallucinates. AI has no soul. AI has no empathy. It
Yeah.
has, it wants to be generic. It sounds like it knows what it's talking about, but
Mhm.
let's rewind that a little bit and understand exactly what's going on behind the scenes. If I tell AI to write a blog post, and we'll just use the air conditioning or HVAC, the top 10 things that an owner should know about HVAC, what is it going to do? Well, it's going to go back to its training data and it's going to understand in the middle or the median of what all the content is out there, what are the generic top 10 things, right?
Mhm.
And so it's going to produce content that sounds like everybody else.
Mhm.
It's going to sound like it knows what it's talking about. But let's say that you have a very specific way and a very um, contrarian
Mhm.
opinion
Yeah.
on the type of service that you provide from an HVAC perspective. What are the right brands that you trust? What is the wrong way to do an installation? AI loves that
Yeah.
because if it's looking across a pattern recognition landscape and everything sounds the same, and all of a sudden somebody pops their head up and says, wait a minute, this is the actual way that you need to do it. And these are the reasons why. And this is why it can be more efficient. AI is going to zone in on that and go, okay, this person has a unique voice. We
Interesting.
need to learn more about that. And so let's say that they specialize in a southern um, geography. And because of all the heat and the humidity, this is the right way to do it. And da 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 da. It's going to drive a lot of visibility to that person because of the expertise that they're bringing to that conversation. And
Makes
so
sense.
I think when we get into an agency mindset of we just need to pump out the content,
Mhm.
we're missing that extra layer that I just described.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the AI can even tell when it's been written by
Oh, yeah.
AI. So, yeah, and as you mentioned, you need the human element in there.
Hmm.
So we don't do our blogs with AI, so we still don't. So, uh,
Good for you.
so you've developed something called the magic script framework. Can you
Yep.
explain how the psychology behind a magic trick translates into building compelling brand messaging? I think we touched on it at the top of the
Yeah. And
podcast.
so somebody asked me a couple of years ago if you had to reverse engineer why you think messaging is the same as magic, what would it be? And, it's one of those things where you just do it. And then somebody asks you to do it. You're like, okay, let me have this little out of body experience and look down and go, okay, here's what's actually going on. And so when a magician walks out on stage, the first thing they do is they want to connect with the audience, right? And so they may mention the theater that they're in. They may point to somebody in the front row and like, "Oh, Paula, that's a lovely sweater you have on." And that's a point of connection, right? And so you don't get the opportunity or the right to move to the next phase until you've created that connection.
Mhm.
And so that's actually a release of oxytocin. And so that's a neurotransmitter that floods your bloodstream with this feeling of like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like Jimmy. We're
Mhm.
going to sit here and see what he's got up his sleeve, so to
Mhm.
speak. And so it's interesting that, there is a connection request on LinkedIn because um, you have to make that relationship bond with the person or people that you're speaking to. And so once you've done that, then you've basically gotten permission to move to the next stage,
Mhm.
which is the curiosity phase. And that's actually a release of dopamine. And we've heard about, oh, you're addicted to social media. You've got a dopamine addiction.
Mhm.
Well, not really. Dopamine is the expectation of a reward or curiosity has been piqued. And so that's why we binge Netflix. That's why
Mhm.
you scroll through your feed because you're like, oh, what's next? What's next? I'm curious. Now, if you stay in that state for a long time, it gets exhausting. So you have to bring it to a close.
Right.
And so the next phase is the conversion of the climax of the magic trick, right? And so the magician has that connection. They say, hey, what if I could make this person float in the air? And so you're thinking, oh, how's that possible?
Mhm.
Well, what's going to happen? So either that person floats in the air or they don't. And so if they do and they come back safely to ground, then that's the climax of the trick and all the applause happens. It's the same thing in a marketing message. It can be the call to action. It can be fill out the form. It can be click to call. It could be in a blog post and you've had your argument and then you conclude that argument. It could be in a social media post. So there's lots of applications to this. And that's a release of serotonin.
Okay.
And that release of serotonin is, oh, it all makes sense. Everything is right with the world. And so, and you heard me say it, probably didn't recognize that I said it, but I said, what if this person could float in the
Mhm.
air? Those are the two magic words to elicit curiosity. And I think we've lost that in our communication these days because we want to go straight from connection to close.
Mm.
And I use LinkedIn, right? What happens when you accept that connection request? Well, either an automated close lands in your DM, or that person believes that they now have the right to sell you something or ask you to jump on a call
Right.
and it feels kind of icky.
Right.
Why? Because you go, you don't know anything about me.
Yep.
You don't know what my pain is. You don't know what I'm seeking. You haven't piqued my curiosity.
Mhm.
And so I would say, analyze any communication that you have,
Mhm.
see if it fits into this magic script. And I call it the magic script because there is a sequence to it. It's
Mhm.
not, you know, um, a random series. And when you follow these three steps in this order, you have a much better chance of having your message land, your sales pitch land, your blog feel right. And so, yeah, I would say that's the overall. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's not easy because we all aggressively want to move to that conversion state.
Yep, and, totally makes sense to me, and I think this is a lot of value that you all bring to your clients and being able to walk them through this process and putting it in a way that kinda resonates. I mean, that explanation you just did with the serotonin and whatever, that was I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. Uh, so curiosity seems to be a recurring theme in your interviews and leadership style. How important is curiosity in today's marketing landscape, especially with how fast technology is evolving? We were just talking about the curiosity. So
Yeah.
I think
Well,
go ahead.
oh, go ahead. No, that's all right.
No, to me, curiosity is a big deal. So
Well, I think it's not only being curious about the tools,
mhm,
how do they work, what actually is going on backstage,
mhm,
but you've got to be curious about your target audience.
mm,
Like, are you asking questions? Do you actually know what their pain is? Do you actually know what keeps them up at night? Like, ask them. Um, Now, the advantage with a lot of these large language models doing all of this training data is you can start to ask them. I have this particular type of ideal client profile. They live in this geographic area. They have these demographic and psychographic profiles. Tell me what you believe questions they might be asking, and you'll get some pretty good information back.
mhm,
And so, again, uh, always be inquisitive, always be asking questions. Um, that's the way these they call them answer engines, and there's an acronym, answer engine optimization, because you want to optimize for these answer engines. And so curiosity is a component of asking questions.
mhm.
And so I would say your brain has to flip into asking and answering questions across the board.
Yeah.
So I think that's where curiosity comes in.
Yeah, I think you're right about people just wanna jump from A to Z quickly,
Yeah.
but if you're trying to solve for problems, you need to know, like you said, what the problem is. What are you trying to solve for? Where are you trying to get? What it you know,
Yeah.
totally agree with you on that. You wrote the book Chasing Carrots. That's an interesting title, and are now working on Uninvisible, right?
Yep.
So what personal experiences inspired those projects for you?
Yeah. So Chasing Carrots was actually an allegory about a monkey. So the full title is Chasing Carrots Won't Help You Find Your Purpose If You Were Born to Love Bananas. And so it's about a monkey who has listened to everybody else for so long that he's lost his identity. Now,
Okay,
being a magician, there's some magic stuff in there. So this monkey is now starring in a magic show. He
okay.
thinks he's a rabbit and he loves carrots. And so there are some things that transpire where he needs to figure out that he's not a rabbit, he's a monkey. And so he goes on this epic journey to get back to who he is. And I think that can happen a lot with us, that we listen to so many different folks, we've forgotten who we are at the core. And if you goes back to authenticity, right? If you're trying to be somebody else, you're going to be really bad at it. So just be the best version of yourself that you can be and be very passionate. And so those are the lessons. There's 7 lessons in that book that help you get back to, helps the monkey get back. But obviously the reader can think about those and go, hey, have I gotten off track a little bit?
And
Um,
that one's published already, correct?
it is. It's on Amazon and all sorts of different book places. Um, Uninvisible was never intended to be a book, but it's really about my journey. And it talks about the Business Visibility Index. It talks about how the owner asked me to be the person as the face of the brand for our agency, what I did, and how visibility has changed in our new world.
Mhm.
And it's a real short read. It's 99 pages. There's a reason why it's 99 pages. It's part of the thesis of the book. It is actually available on
Okay.
Lulu. I'm having a little bit of wrestling match with the publisher because of the way the cover is designed. And so this is something interesting. The way the cover is designed, their AI doesn't like the way the cover is designed because I've done some things on the cover that doesn't fit the model of what they think the cover should look like, and it's completely fine. But their AI model keeps kicking it out, and I'm going, this has been a month. I'm like, could you just look at the cover and realize that I have followed your template and this is what I want it to be? I'm the author.
Right?
And so this is where AI can go bad
Uh,
because AI is not letting me get this book out because it thinks the cover is not what it should be.
well,
So
that's when you need the human intervention.
I know. That's what I responded. I said, please look at this. So
Yeah.
anyway, it should be out pretty soon, maybe by the time this episode goes live. But yeah.
Well, I have to say, I think you've been our longest podcast because this has been very interesting in the different
Oh,
little areas that we went into, and I've learned a lot. And uh, I think people could really learn a lot from you and from Thrive Agency. How would they? What would be the best way to get in touch with you all?
yeah, sure. Well, I try to practice what I preach. So I publish on LinkedIn
Okay.
every day, Monday through Friday. I have a lot of tips on there.
Okay.
So would be happy for people to connect with me there and
Um,
DM me. Don't go straight for the close.
yeah. Do that. Yeah.
I'll have a conversation with
Yeah.
you. And then Thrive Internet Marketing Agency is thriveagency.com. A
Okay.
lot of free information on that website, but if we can help anybody with their challenges related to visibility, would be happy to have a conversation. So,
They'd definitely be dealing with an expert to be dealing with you, Jimmy. So I
well,
really
thank you,
appreciate
Paula.
your time today. This was great. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for having me.
That's it for today's episode of B2B Influence. If you picked up something new or found yourself rethinking your approach, take a second to subscribe, leave a quick comment, and share this episode with your network. And don't forget, once we hit 25,000 subscribers, one lucky listener will win a free customer analysis. Just subscribe and comment to enter. If you want to be a guest or know someone pushing the boundaries in B2B marketing, tap the link in the show notes to nominate or apply. And if you're ready to fuel smarter campaigns and more accurate targeting, check out what we're doing at OMI.